All right, folks, welcome into another special coronavirus edition of I've Got a Theory. I'm Henish, and I've got my guests, Tracy Campagna and Michael Kane, and their dog, Jax. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are more popularly known as the San Diego mortgage couple, the SD mortgage couple, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Well, besides being rates at historic lows, we're really not going to talk about mortgages or real estate. True?
We would prefer.
Yes, we want to talk about something fun.
I know, and you mentioned you've got something interesting. Go ahead and share it. Let's hear what your theory is.
Well, it's both of our theories, but we were kind of talking about it a little bit more today too. But it's our theory that aliens built the pyramids.
They definitely were not built by the Egyptians.
Okay.
No.
100% certain in that.
Why do you believe that?
Michael?
The precision that it was engineered with, the alignment with stars in outer space.
True north.
The alignment in Earth, where it's exactly positioned in almost true north in the center of the Earth.
And perfectly lined up with Leo. Also, the biggest giveaway is that it has water. What is it called? The water.
There's actually, if you look at like the base, they could show photos with water erosion marks
Yes.
at the base stones, which water hasn't been in Egypt for 13,000 years, and that was the last ice age actually.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think that happened?
Well,
and why is it, did they do more than just the pyramids, or do you think aliens just built the pyramids?
Well, I think they came here and they made us slaves. Okay, to mine gold. And then I feel like they put a little bit of their DNA with our DNA, and that's how they made us. I don't believe in evolution or in the theory of the Bible. I believe that we have some alien in us, and we're still part of them today, and they're still visiting us daily.
Maybe they could visit us, but I do believe, to get back to your question, I do believe there are other structures throughout the Earth. There's other megalithic structures that are just these huge, massive rocks that we don't even have the technology today to move. So to think ancient people moved and created these structures is crazy.
Like Stonehenge or those Easter Island type.
There's other structures throughout the Earth.
I forget.
Yeah, Tekelakon. You got to watch maybe some YouTube, but there's rocks that are huge structures that all have the way that they're lined up, and they're not the exact same shapes. There's no way human, man without tool at that point could have moved some of these items.
They want us to believe it was done with like a circle rock and some copper.
So you think possibly that aliens are still involved in Earth somehow?
I do. Didn't the government just release footage of the UFOs?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
What do you think that means? Why do you think they're being secret? Because if they built these big structures and it's like, it seems obvious that aliens built it. Like, why are they being secret about it now?
Because I think that it keeps us in control. It keeps us slaves. They can't tell us everything. They got to have the brain force at the top, and we're just like these ants running around.
The minions.
Yeah, we're the minions.
You think, okay, so this is just me kind of diving into it. So let's imagine an alien species from someplace far away, right? And at the minimum, we know they're probably at least 4 light years away, because that's the nearest star to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't think they live in our Milky Way solar system, right? But if they're in our galaxy,
they probably figure out how to use like wormholes or space travel, some technology that we our minds can't even comprehend.
So why would they need slaves, right? Ideally, they'd have robots and drones that could do anything for them, because we're almost there. Humans, us lowly humans, have almost got to the point where robots can take over a lot of work and do it for us. We don't need organic things to do stuff for us.
I think we're a continuation of them. I think that maybe their planet became, I don't know, thousands of years from now, and we could possibly be destroying Earth. Maybe that's what happened to them, and we are like a reflection of them, a continuation of the species.
Is this, and I don't know your guys' beliefs, is this Scientology at all? And I don't know Scientology that well, to be
I don't know Scientology.
Okay, so you're not Scientologist. I didn't
this
know
is just the Ancient Alien channel on the History Channel.
Ancient Alien theory, ancient astronaut theory, I think is what they...
Or ancient aliens.
Ancient alien theory.
One of my theories was that if And if aliens had visited us, it would probably be robotic drone aliens and not necessarily organic skin and flesh aliens, because of
I
the
heard that
exact
you
Or the
believe
reason.
skin
that.
and flesh, yeah, they could look nothing like what we would have imagined life would look like. It could, be some obscure,
Well, who's that guy? Bob, what's his name?
Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
That's a good one to Google or look up YouTube videos.
That's right. Bob. He worked for
Area 51.
Yeah.
He well, supposedly now the lab doesn't have any the lab that he worked at doesn't have any recollection of him ever working
they
there, but
deleted him, basically.
he says there's an element that he saw there that actually is like an anti-gravitational element that they were able to isolate, and they got it in the crashes from the old Roswell crashes in the 50s or 60s.
Uh-huh.
And he said he saw it there. He's actually exiled from from the scientific community, but supposedly he says he has some somewhere.
So this is interesting. So you guys, believe in the aliens thing and that they helped build pyramids. What about other structures like in Greece or Rome or Babylonia, where they have these huge things like the ancient wonders of the world? Well,
I think that the humans built on those sites because maybe they were sacred or other reasons, or they were brought there to work.
I think there's been help all along, like Easter Island. I think that the aliens in the first ice age, back probably that far back, or maybe even further back, the aliens were there at that point, and they were kind of spawning us and teaching us ways of doing things. And I believe that they kind of gave us our start. They showed us how to farm, and they gave us the seeds to figure that out. And then for the ancient Greek ruins, I do believe that humans built those, but I think that they had the help of learning how to build those from the aliens at the pyramids.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now let me ask this. Imagine sometime in the future and we're potentially not under alien control, or do we always stay under alien control, or do we eventually go to other planets and help other lowly species build stuff for them?
I think we'll go to planets. I mean, look, we're trying to terraform Mars. That's already on people's radars. They're looking to get out and explore.
Yeah, that's a fundamental thing about most species, right? That evolve is that we're always trying to figure things out and explore and expand our boundaries. You think that was possibly true for ancient aliens? They came to Earth and saw, oh, cool, there's these little things, and they're starting to figure it out. Let's get involved.
Yeah, I think that maybe they needed to. They wanted to replicate. People want to see more of themselves.
I think they wanted the gold too. I think that's maybe why we've always valued gold, because maybe they came here and they mine gold. It was valuable for them.
It conducts electricity.
It does something. Maybe it helps, the ozone or the, maybe
ozone.
Ozone.
I don't think it helps the ozone.
Maybe.
I think it's a conductor of electricity.
One of my prior guests on the show told me a theory about these mercury pools that they're starting to find underneath pyramids, not just in Egypt, but in other parts of the world. Have you heard of that?
We did hear about this, and that there's a big lake of water under the big pyramid.
They might have been conductors for
electricity.
Tesla has a theory where they even say that Edison might have killed Tesla. They wanted to monetize electricity, and that there's a system where you have a shape like a pyramid, and it can conduct electricity freely throughout the just the air.
Oh wow!
So you couldn't really monetize it. You could plug it into a meter. So that was around when Tesla and Edison were rivals.
Right.
So the pyramid, they say, is within that same shape and can actually be a global conductor, where there might have been an energy source coming from the pyramid. And the pyramid actually used to have white casings all over it.
Mm-hmm. And a gold tip.
And a gold tip. But yeah, the way that we see it isn't that there was an earthquake that actually destroyed the white casing all over it, and that there's actually rocks within the mortar that conduct higher levels of electricity than standard, that standard rock, like a standard granite.
Aha. That's interesting. So these things are still so mysterious because obviously the Egyptians, we don't have stories from their time that tell us what exactly happened except for the hieroglyphs, right?
Right.
Which kind of indicates some stuff. And I think there's a lot of stuff that they were able to read from the hieroglyphs, especially when they got the Rosetta Stone and we're able to read what's on the walls and in their old texts or whatever they can find.
We call them emojis nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it depends which language you're in, right? Because the Japanese and Chinese still basically use hieroglyphs, right? I mean, they're basically
That's what we were saying. We were like, this is what language is going to be, just all emojis. That's what the Egyptians used.
I know, yeah. And I'm always shocked by people that can read emojis just as fast as they can read words. I'm like, they make them so small too. I'm always like, can I blow those things up? And I don't feel like my vision's going that bad, but I'm like, is that a teardrop? That's a sad emoji?
Right.
I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. So check this out. So let me answer this because this is going to be a contentious point. There is a theory that people that believe that aliens built the pyramids came from originally racist beliefs.
Well,
Never thought of that.
I never even heard about that, but
Because
I can see where that theory
I
would
don't
come
think you guys
from,
are,
for sure.
and I'm not implying that you guys are racist, but it's kind of almost came up a little bit too. Because I asked you about Greece, and I was like, did the Greeks build theirs? And you're like, yeah, I think they built theirs. Maybe they got some help. But the theory goes is that when alien literature started getting popular in the late 1800s, especially in the early 1900s with H.G. Wells and War of the Worlds, that's when the first kind of ancient alien theories started popping up in the 60s. By some like German person that was like basically implied that non-whites couldn't have built some structures like this.
Yeah, for sure. I could totally see somebody coming out saying that, and they had to build a story for. Yeah, I could see that in the past.
And then they were saying the same thing for the Native Americans here. With the lines, the Nazca lines down in like Central America or Peru or wherever they were. Same with the big mounds that they build, the big burial mounds in North America from the Native Americans. They're saying, they couldn't have done it. But they revealed that those were kind of, they're saying aliens as in like necessarily not Native Americans. Maybe it was another, race that came, or in this case, ancient aliens from another planet. But it was kind of implemented as a strategy by the U.S. government to downplay the Native Americans as like valid, smart people and kind of dehumanize them to make the U.S. feel better about taking their land, saying they're savages, they don't know what they're doing.
We could see that as something that could be have been. That's true. We never even thought of that. Well, we only got our theories by watching the History Channel.
For sure.
Ancient Aliens.
They never dove into that aspect.
No, yeah, of course.
But I think the structures in, if you're comparing like Egypt to like, Greece, the structures in Greece aren't nearly as complex. I mean, yeah, there's some beautiful structures and carvings and stuff, but like the pyramids, one of those stones, just the size alone, they're saying modern machinery can't move, and I don't know. I think everything in Greece could easily be built nowadays with modern machinery and technology today cannot build some of the things that are in Egypt.
Yes. So I mean, that's kind of the main point of the show, is to kind of learn and expand your knowledge about different things. Ideally, for us as guests, hosts on the show, also for everyone that's listening in, that's interesting. Let's look at this perspective and see what we can find to kind of uncover it. And then also the deeper meaning of what does it mean if aliens did come at that time, because my thinking was for a long time, I agree. I think that it was bizarre that these things have been built, and each individual stone could be up to 20 tons or more. And it's like 20 tons, that's like 40,000 pounds. That's like more than my building.
And they're saying this was done before the actual invention of the wheel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it is mind boggling to think of that kind of structures being built.
You look at some of the precision too, with like the machine lining and it looks like machining done in some of the rock that's hard as granite. And this is before any type of diamond tools, or even, I think they were in the brass age. So the hardest thing that they had was maybe brass, which if you know your
copper.
Maybe copper, brass and copper, but those are pretty soft metals compared to granite that's within the tombs.
There are tool marks. When we watch this show, we do see the examples of the tool marks that look like perfect holes drilled, and it could only be done by a machine.
There's also some tombs that are, I think it's not within the pyramids, but somewhere around the grounds. It's something Serapeum, but there's these gigantic granite rock, basically like coffin structures. They're huge.
Oh yeah.
And the tolerances within to actually get them into where they at. I mean, it's within like millimeters.
And didn't we try? We tried to move a stone. Didn't we try?
Oh yeah, modern machinery. They couldn't even open it. They had to blow it up with dynamite to look inside of one of them. So.
Oh, wow.
We tried to move one down a hall too. They showed on the show. We tried to move it down the hall and they couldn't. They just left it there. Yeah. So it's just set still. Still out there.
Or does that mean that we just haven't had enough practice trying to do something like that? You know, it's the same with those Easter Island ones. I remember seeing something on the Easter Island and Stonehenge that they were able to recreate some of those things by like digging a hole and dropping it in and some leverage. I don't know, I don't know exactly how it pans out, but it's worth digging into more and uncovering, could it have been possible that these were people that were just advanced for their time in that area, because it's only when you look at the ancient wonders of the world, the pyramids predate the other ones by a good couple thousand years. Like when they say the Hanging Gardens of Babylon or the lighthouse or the big Zeus structure, or these other things that were popular 2,000 years ago. When you're saying that, oh, these pyramids came 5,000 years ago, you're like, holy cow, how did they do this 3,000 years before the next best thing that we figured out how to do?
Maybe there was some kind of lost technology. Maybe the Bob Lazar anti-gravity element was discovered in ancient times and then lost and refound, but they actually had levitational, abilities, and that could explain getting the blocks into place.
There's a really good book, and I think they turned into a 3-part series by Jared Diamond. He's like a UCLA, history professor of some sort. But he wrote a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it was a really good book and series. But basically, he talks about how people and civilizations evolved differently with different resources, basically due to luck. And because I remember thinking that because, I'm Indian ethnically, and India and Asia and Europe and Africa have all kind of been connected because people could walk and travel and take a horse and see what's happening in other parts. But the Americas and Australia have been isolated, right? That's why when Europeans first went to Australia and they saw the natives there, they hadn't gotten to the point of developing civilization. Right. And we still see this in a lot of places where there's primitive cultures where they haven't developed cities or buildings and things like that because of how isolated they've been. Mm-hmm. And same with, in the Americas, people have been in North and South America. They've proven for 10 to 15,000 years, so a long time, but they walked across that land bridge from, Russia through Alaska or, what's now known as. And they came here and they didn't get that same boost of having that commerce within the Eurasia area of people saying, oh, this person's building this way, we're going to copy that technique. So they didn't have that benefit. So the earliest things you see here are just only 1,000 or 2,000 years old, right? With the Mayans or the Aztecs and stuff like that. But it's because of the difference of availability of resources and animals and things like that cause these different flows of technology and evolution of human civilizations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was
everyone builds
really
on top of each other.
What's that?
Everyone builds on top of each other. It's a kind of a snowball effect.
Right. Because it's the information travels, and then you're like, oh, okay, you can build by using a lever or a fulcrum or a pulley system. Those are things that might not have evolved here. So when you're like, oh, Chichen Itza is such an amazing place to go visit, or the place in Peru, is that's Chichen Itza, right? Chichen Itza, the one in Peru.
I think so.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is so incredible. They built these things with these huge rocks, and it's on top of a mountain, and it's, from the 1300s, which is only 700 years old. And you're like, that's not that impressive. But then when you consider that they didn't get the benefit of having thousands of years of civilization here to build upon, you're like, okay, it's independently impressive. Because I look back to India, like in the 1300s, India built the Taj Mahal, which is pretty freaking nice and still around.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, that's, obviously leaps and bounds ahead of, the Peru structures of the Incas that they've built at the same time period. But it was like 2 worlds apart at that point.
There's some pretty wild structures in India too, where the carvings that you guys have. There's like a temple that's like completely carved out of one stone somewhere in India, I believe.
Yeah, those are 4,000 or 5,000 years old as well, right?
Yeah.
The Hindu religion starts 5,000 years ago, so they say that kind of that civilization started, maybe 10,000 years ago. So they had a long time to build upon it. and have cities and have the ability to have people specialize, right? Instead of having people just being hunters or gatherers, like, okay, cool, we figured out how to farm. Now you're in charge of building buildings. You're in charge of farming. You're in charge of taking care of the
There could have
animals.
also been like a whole civilization that was wiped out with, obviously like a gigantic flood that's, kind of told in the story of Noah. Maybe, with Atlantis, some of those stories that, they were written in history from, some of the greatest historians referencing Atlantis. And, was that a great advanced civilization that was just wiped off the earth and,
That's true.
like a, global catastrophe?
That's basically what happened.
We were just smarter.
That's what happened at Easter Island, right? I mean, they figured out how to move these big stones. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, maybe it was aliens. But what happened that they were able to prove is that they hunted or farmed the land, where the land, they eventually had to turn to cannibalism and then extincted themselves, right? They were stuck on this island and then they couldn't survive on the island anymore because they either killed off all the animals they ate or they couldn't figure out how to farm anymore. I think it's because it was like an environmental disaster that they created themselves. It's one of the earliest known human-caused environmental disasters, for them to like kill themselves off their own island.
So maybe that's what happened before. Maybe we did possess some other knowledge that was lost with a world catastrophe, but we really did build the pyramids. We were just that much smarter at that time.
Yeah, people lose it, right? People lose it.
Yeah.
And, you could get it back, right? It's kind of like with the coronavirus. I'm worried about getting back on the basketball court and pulling a muscle the first time because it's been 4 weeks, but times that by thousands of years, you're going to lose stuff.
Global catastrophe now. We're all wiped out. There's only a few people make it. The 4,000 years from now, are people going to be able to find our hard drives and what information? Maybe maybe a couple pages of books or something. The buildings will all be probably collapsed on itself. The steel and glass structures.
That's funny. I remember reading a book once where they were trying to figure out how they can preserve information for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. And in the book that I'd read, no digital media makes it. Digital media doesn't have the lifespan. So they had to carve it into stone to make it last long enough so that hundreds of thousands or millions of years in the future, it could be found, much like we're finding evidence of whatever happened thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
If it wasn't carved in stone, it didn't happen at this point, even for us. Like if we get wiped out and all we have is our hard drives, no one's going to remember us.
No, the Facebook will be gone.
Well, awesome, guys. I appreciate you spending some time with me and sharing an interesting theory at the least. I love talking about aliens and ancient civilizations. So that was cool for you guys to come on and talk about that. Thanks
and it was
so
a
much
good break from just thinking about debt to income ratios.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And mortgage rolls.
Oh, by the way, you're closing tomorrow. Let me do one more verification of employment, just real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm going to click off on this show. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to hear what our viewers have to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I've Got a Theory, and our guests, Tracy Campagna and Michael Kane, the SD Mortgage
Thank you.
couple.
Adios.
Bye. It was fun.
Take care.